In Idaho, water flows west from the mountains. For more than a century and a half, there have been attempts to control this precious resource.
It's water that dictates where people settle the West and how they settle the West.
And with those efforts have come not only the physical structures, but also a legal framework for determining winners and losers.
Who was first? Who was second? Who has priority over somebody else? And that's an issue that will go on, forever.
In good water years, almost everyone's a winner. But lately, those good water years have been in short supply, leaving the experts to search for answers.
The groundwater may be there to be pumped, but may be impacting surface water right holder, and that's where things get rather tricky, and the legislatures had to step in and adjust some rules. And that's a rather convoluted and complicated conversation.
What can the past and the present tell us about the future of water in Idaho?
It's going to be hot. It's going to be burning up in the summers. Our runoffs are going to come early. We're going to run out of water before the end of August. We are going to have a completely new arrangement with the earth.
Outdoor Idaho explores the way forward.
Funding for Outdoor Idaho is made possible by the Friends of Idaho Public Television, by the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moores' legacy of helping to build the great state of Idaho, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Mark Twain once wrote that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. Water is indeed a substance infused with emotion, even religious significance. Let's face it, water is the key to the future of the West. Hi, I'm Bruce Reichert, and welcome to Outdoor Idaho. John Wesley Powell also wrote about water. More than a century ago, he warned anyone who would listen that the scarcity of water would one day pile up a heritage of conflict. Turns out that conflict is more than just two sides arguing in a courtroom. Sometimes it plays out in dramatic fashion. Southern Idaho is a desert with miles of undeveloped sagebrush steppe. It was the promise of free land through the Homestead Act that brought many early settlers out west. But those settlers had a rough time making a living off the land.
I find it a beautiful landscape, but it's also a harsh landscape. It's not a place that's easy for people to live. That's why the early farmers called it reclaiming when they irrigated it. And it has turned into a mix of both an industrial irrigated landscape and this still wild, natural, arid desert.
Early settlers soon realized the miles of parched ground needed water. And farmers and ranchers fought for land adjacent to rivers and streams.
Just look at a Landsat image of Idaho and you see this great swath of red across the Snake River Plain. And you notice there is more flat, arable land there than there are crops being grown, which is an indication we're water limited. And that's the entire western United States.
This visual is a lesson in water management. The Idaho desert is only productive for farmers and ranchers if they have access to water. It literally means the difference between life and death.
It wasn't a very hospitable place.
Clarence Coupin is a third-generation potato farmer from American Falls. Coupin Farms owns and cultivates more than 9,000 acres. When his grandfather started farming, water law was in its infancy. Back then, water ownership was enforced with the barrel of a gun.
That's why Grandpa bought the gun, was to pack on the ditch when he went and checked his water, because everybody was splitting the water in the ditches out the culverts and that. I think we've been fighting over water for a long, long time, and we're still fighting over it. Only instead of using guns today, we use lawyers. And that's going on as we speak.
Some Idaho canals, like the New York Canal in Boise, were funded through groups of investors in the late 1800s. But to build large reservoirs and dams proved too costly for those early settlers, so they turned to the government. In 1902, the formation of the United States Reclamation Service under the Reclamation Act was in direct response to the need for water development in the West.
But the folks back then didn't have the financial means to build the large reservoirs like Arrow Rock or Anderson Ranch to then take in additional sagebrush land and turn that into productive farmland.
Gerald Gregg is the Snake River area manager of the renamed U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. The money and tenacity of the new service was supported by President Teddy Roosevelt. He understood the future of the West was dependent on water.
Our predecessors were very good engineers. A lot of them come from the mining companies, and they surveyed out all the canals and laterals and then used steam shovels and horses to build these canals.
The Reclamation Service also built dams and reservoirs to funnel water to land separated from rivers. It cost billions of dollars, but today the Boise project alone creates almost $2 billion a year in economic value to the region.
Me and you wouldn't be standing here today if our forefathers didn't have the foresight to irrigate the desert. Because I tell you, we don't have to go very far from here, about 7 miles, and we're in the desert.
It wasn't long before we realized water users themselves needed more than just physical structures. They needed a method of dividing up the water. In Idaho, that's covered in 2 parts. The Idaho Constitution supports what is known as prior appropriation.
Under a prior appropriation-based system, when there's not enough water to go around to everybody who holds a right, and at this point there usually isn't enough in any given growing season, they have to set a curtailment date. And so what they say is any producer or any water rights holder with a priority date prior to, say, 1932 gets their water, whereas people with a priority date after 1932 are not going to get their water.
Often referred to as first in time is first in right, it gives water users a ranking system. The state constitution also lists which water users have priority. Domestic users like towns and cities and mining interests are regarded higher than agriculture and manufacturing. The second part of the equation is the state water plan, developed by the State Water Board. The plan creates priorities, a template for water managers to meet current and future needs.
Well, you know, it's critical to the state's future to have that water plan. I mean, and there's a lot of reasons for it. Number one, water is a finite resource. And if we don't have a water plan, and if we don't define what we're going to do with our water, if the shortages of water that's in the West, states like Oregon and Washington and Nevada are going to come and say Idaho doesn't have a plan how to use their water, and they will go to courts and they'll get injunctions to take Idaho's water and use it in their states where they have a use established for it.
Kevin Lewis represents Idaho Rivers United. He helped draft revisions to the state water plan, the first changes to the plan in 2 decades.
Yeah, it should be a living document, you know, because things will change. Priorities will change. And so, you know, you should revisit the plan, I would say at the latest, every 10 years.
After years of negotiation, the plan was supported by environmental groups, state water managers, and by water users themselves. But included in the revision to the state water plan, a line that recognizes changes in climate known as climate variability. Some lawmakers weren't happy with that section of the plan and tried to introduce their own version. That didn't sit well with some.
If you remove the whole section on climate variability, I mean, you're basically just denying reality. That's not very smart. Other programs that looked like they would have been cut were policies that talked about, you know, repairing habitat and that sort of thing. And I thought, in the end, you know, everybody made some compromises. IRU didn't get all that we'd like to see in a plan, and other people didn't get what they like to see in a plan. That's how you develop these plans. It's compromise.
When water is scarce, the state water plan and prior appropriation help regulate water use. And in years of drought, create winners and losers, with serious implications for agriculture. Potato farmers like Claren Kumpen must self-regulate water use. For now, new technology like sprinkler pivots is replacing flood irrigation, and it's helping Coopin farms do a lot more with less.
We can raise more today than we ever have. Potatoes today are way better than they were 40 years ago, yield-wise. We're doing it with less water.
In the Pacimmeroy Valley, in a narrow strip of prime farmland in central Idaho, farmers are learning a lesson in unintended consequences.
There's no water here because of the irrigation, and we actually have to dam the Pacimmeroy River off to get our decreed rights filled at this time of year.
Rancher Ted O'Neill is in the process of converting his fields from flood irrigation to sprinkler pivots in order to reduce his water use. Drought and competition for water means that sections of the Pacimmeroy River simply disappear every summer. Jimmy Doughton Sr. has already adopted several conservation practices, including sprinklers. The result is he can keep more water in the Pacimmeroy River. But Doughton says he noticed less water on the field means less water recharging the underground aquifer.
When we was flood irrigating, we'd put hundreds of inches of water, hundreds of CFS of water out on that ground, and you could go down and see springs come up, but you don't see that. You don't see that now. And that's what got me concerned, is reconnecting these streams.
Efficiency has a very positive value associated with the word. And so when you think, should we be more efficient? It's this. Of course we should be more efficient. Yes, they did ultimately use less water putting it on the crop, but when you do the math, you found out that there was less water infiltrating the groundwater and less water available for the wetlands, and so they started having a lot of problems with wetlands drying up.
This consequence led to a legal fight between irrigators and those who pump water from the aquifer. Surface water users, those irrigators who pump water from canals and rivers, blamed well pumpers for a dwindling water supply, and science seemed to back them up. It was a complication that ended with new management rules in 1992 known as conjunctive management, requiring groundwater and surface water to be managed together.
So most states have had to recognize that surface water and groundwater interact with each other, and that the water rights to some degree have to be conjunctively administrated.
The first plan to manage surface and groundwater together began in 1987 to cover the eastern Snake River Plain aquifer, perhaps the most important aquifer in the state. It covers more than 10,000 square miles from St. Anthony to Hagerman, roughly the size of Lake Erie. It took more than 2 decades and is still a sore point for some. That same process is underway in central and north Idaho. To further complicate the issue, in 2007 the Idaho Supreme Court added flexibility to first in time is first in right. It determined that senior water rights must be balanced against the best economic use. The court gave the Idaho Department of Water Resources the power to determine what that best use is. That often means not enough water to meet the demand.
Whether it's reality or perception, everybody feels that if anything changes, they're going to be negatively impacted, so they're going to fight the change. And that's when you get to that point of conflict.
Less snow in the winter means less snowpack to provide fresh water flowing to rivers all summer long. And that means less water to divide up among the many users by August.
That climate really defines us as Idahoans, and climate provides a template for a lot of the resources, our water resources, our land resources, forestry, agriculture, energy, tourism, recreation. All those really come back to water in the end.
How much and when the water falls from the sky in any given year has serious implications for everyone in the state. Scientists like John Abatzoglu at the University of Idaho is looking at some interesting changes in Idaho's climate. His research models predict a potential 7 to 10 degree temperature increase in populated areas of Idaho by the end of this century.
Summer temperatures in McCall be a lot like current summer temperatures are today in Boise. And for Boise, if we consider what summer temperatures might look like in Boise by the end of the 21st century, and we think about where we'd have to go today to find temperatures like that, we would have to go quite some distance, thousands of miles away, outside of the Pacific Northwest.
So about 13 feet from the edge?
Molly Wood with the U.S. Geological Survey is testing stream flow along the Salmon River near Whitebird, Idaho. The USGS doesn't have any water management duties, but they do provide valuable data about the water flowing downriver.
It's about 5.5 feet where the instrument is right now.
Molly and her colleagues use stream gauges to detect trends in runoff, temperature changes, and even the quality of water.
Okay, I don't think there's a whole lot of snow left in the mountains.
I mean, those kinds of trends are important for us to be able to manage our water resources in Idaho. If we know that stream flow is declining because of some land use change or some climate change of some kind, then we need to be able to manage our water resources according to that and understand why that's happening. So it's really important that we continue to collect long periods of data.
Greg Clark with USGS explains what they have noticed in the past several decades.
We can see that since the 60s and 70s that the water is coming off earlier. It's melting in the mountains quicker. Statistically, it's coming off about 3 weeks earlier than it has back in the middle part of the century.
This change in runoff means that dozens of state and federal agencies that manage water will have to adapt in order to meet expectations. A job easier said than done. One of those agencies is the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. It enforces the Clean Water Act and also has a hand in regulating the Endangered Species Act.
Our population is large and growing, and we can't just take our resources for granted. We have to actively manage and protect them.
The EPA released new rules for suction dredge mining in 2013. This framework means recreational miners can use a 5-inch industrial vacuum to move sediment off the bottom of a river. These modern-day miners, like Rick Eddy, are looking for small quantities of precious metals.
I don't know, a couple of grams. You're in a whole different world down there. Nobody bothers you. The fish love you. You see all kinds of things there and move rocks around. It's just a thrill. And you see gold, it's like, it will give you gold fever.
Mining played an important role in the development of the state, but there is concern about what suction dredge mining does to water quality.
Even though it came from the bottom of the river, by disrupting the subsurface of the river, it can have negative impacts on aquatic life. And in particular, the concerns are for salmon redds or steelhead redds. Those are essentially the nests that fish use. And so we went through an extensive Endangered Species Act consultation to determine which rivers could remain open and which needed to be closed to this type of activity.
Here's a big fish coming down here onto the nest. Just watch carefully.
The result is the EPA closed the entire Salmon River to this modern prospecting in 2013 with the introduction of a new permit. Wirtz says his agency determined that the Salmon River should be closed to protect endangered salmon like Chinook and sockeye, but not everyone was happy with the new rules.
I think it's fair to say a lot of them don't want to have the government in the business of regulating them or requiring a permit. I mean, even though it's a free permit, it still is something they have to do their activity.
The permit does mean that suction dredge mining will continue in certain areas of the state. That's not the case in California and Oregon, where suction dredge mining is banned entirely. The State Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, monitors the health of rivers across Idaho. The data is collected from water quality monitors. This one is on the Teton River in eastern Idaho. Since the passage of the Clean Water Act 40 years ago, river health has improved considerably.
At the end of the day, you'll find that the Clean Water Act, while been bumpy, by and large has been pretty successful for stakeholders and residents, if not sometimes individual producers.
The Boise River now attracts thousands of visitors each summer. Gone are the days when big industrial businesses dumped waste directly into the river. The EPA and the state's DEQ have now turned their attention to smaller sources of pollutants. For instance, fertilizer from farms located near rivers can sometimes end up in the water. Managing this type of runoff, known as non-point source pollutants, isn't easy or popular among some in Idaho.
There's always going to be disagreements on what's important and what's a priority. That's just the nature of the business.
Most states have the ability to develop their own permits under the Clean Water Act. But Idaho finds itself subject to federal oversight.
Idaho does not have primacy for the Clean Water Act program. There's only certain parts and pieces that we have. The approval ultimately lies with EPA.
That can slow progress and can lead to disagreements. State lawmakers have discussed taking over management, most recently in 2012. But the program that allows a state to develop pollution discharge permits is expensive. The EPA provides the service for free, but if the state takes over the multi-million-dollar program, the cost would have to be carried by the state. And while that challenge is playing out, Idaho faces another concern: more competition for its water.
This area is growing fast. They predict by 2025 there'll be 1 million people in the valley. When I came here in '87, there was 200,000 people in the valley. So all of that growth, we're going to need to find water for those folks.
The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation changed its mission since its founding in 1902. Today, the agency manages the water behind the dams and water flowing in rivers and canals. The agency will be part of a larger effort to regulate water. And as demand grows, expect even more conflict, as predicted by John Wesley Powell more than 100 years ago.
There has to be this mindset of understanding that if I'm coming in new to an area and I'm anticipating to be able to use water, you have to consciously think of who was using this water before.
In many ways, every drop of water is spoken for, even the water allowed to flow downriver. State and federal laws demand some water remain in the river to protect threatened and endangered fish species. There are fish accords with American Indian tribes, promises that must be kept to allow the tribal members to fish and to manage their own fish hatcheries, like the Nez Perce salmon and steelhead programs. Water itself has had an almost religious meaning to the tribe.
First thing before the salmon, the importance up to the tribe is the water and then the fish. And that's how they live.
Then there is the international treaty with Canada that helped prevent flooding in the Columbia River Basin. The 1964 Columbia River Treaty provided dams and flow management in Canada to prevent flooding downriver in Oregon and Washington. The treaty expires in 2024, and it's unknown if it will be replaced with a new treaty that also addresses new concerns, like endangered fish. But while there is concern for what the future holds, there is evidence that Idaho will be better off than other western states, in case there is significantly reduced rain and snow in the future.
We are nowhere near as short of water as the Southwest. So Idaho will have to redistribute. We're going to have to learn how to use our water better. And that doesn't always mean conservation, but it will include conservation. 50 years from today, Idaho's going to look like a bounty of water in the West. And that's going to bring to Idaho all kinds of opportunities. You know, Idaho has become a wine growing state. We now can grow great red wines. When I moved to Idaho in the 80s, they couldn't. They could only grow white wines because of the weather conditions. So climate change is adapting doesn't necessarily always mean bad thing.
Our future depends on how we meet the new challenges ahead. and odds are it won't be easy.
Over history, Idahoans have found a way to live together and to share their water, and I think that'll happen again. It's just going to take understanding on everybody's part, and it's also going to take looking for ways that we can make this resource go further for everybody.
Funding for Outdoor Idaho is made possible by the Friends of Idaho Public Television, by the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore's legacy of helping to build the great state of Idaho, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. All Outdoor Idaho programs are available for purchase, including hour-long specials. To find more information about these shows, visit us at idahoptv.org.